Pharmaceutical Processing, in conjunction with INTERPHEX, presents INTERPHEX Live.
Welcome back. Okay, for our next session, I don't see a few familiar faces. Anyway, from the last session, we were talking about CAR T and movement and getting the CAR T gene therapy, getting it out there in the supply chain. I thought it was a perfect segue into what we're going to have our conversation with Chad Owens today. And he's going to be talking about leveraging the technologies in supply chain. And had I known that, I would have told the people who are here for the other CAR T to stick around. Don't miss it. I see one. All right, we're good. So Chad is with OPTEL, and he's about manufacturing and KPI optimization expert. Okay. So we heard the names dropped a few times in the last one. So what is intelligent supply chain, Chad?
Yeah, so I think when we start talking about these general concepts, intelligent supply chain, Industry 4.0, everybody's got kind of a different concept of what it means. Intelligent supply chain, to me, is being able to use a lot of data to help you make better decisions about your business, right? So if you're using data, obviously the more granular data that you can capture, the better the insights into your business you're going to have. This is where kind of OPTEL plays a key role, because using our state-of-the-art systems, we're able to capture very granular data from raw material extraction all the way to production and down to the consumer. And using this data for the first time is actually going to connect all the actors in a product's life, and we'll be able to follow products from beginning to end, very granularly. So ISC technologies are basically going to follow products all the way through from extraction of raw materials, farming, mining materials, all the way to consumer use and hopefully disposal as well. So,
just let me step back. Industry 4.0.
Yeah.
Because that was the other one gets dropped a lot. Let me.
Sure. So Industry 4.0 is, to me, an enabling technology, right? So you've got to have a way to get all of this data and get this data to systems that's going to be usable. So these are your ERP systems, MES systems. How do we get all this manufacturing data into a system? How do we get all of this supply chain data into systems so that we can have it there to make the decisions? And to me, that's the Industry 4.0 concept. Let's get everything connected. Let's get everything talking. And now that we've getting this data into the right systems, into the cloud, then we're able to use that data to correctly make manufacturing decisions and supply chain decisions.
So sorry to get off the
No,
anyway, let's back up to where we were.
Sure.
So the intelligent supply chain, I think what we got to do here is people, especially the guys on the downstream, all the upstream, sometimes they forget about that. But I think we need this, for instance, supply chain, how critical, how important that is to the business model.
Sure. So supply chain to me is the next wave of competitive advantage for business, right? Businesses have long been enhancing their manufacturing processes through collecting data. So they're enhancing manufacturing, they're enhancing packaging, they're trying to collect OEE data to drive efficiencies. What they've forgotten about is getting material from a source to their facility, and then getting that material from their facility to their end users, consumers, patients. All of that stuff plays a critical factor in how efficient you are as a business in general. So by leveraging our serialized data, you're going to get unprecedented transparency into business operations. So ISC takes data beyond your manufacturing process. It takes it out into all the other aspects of your business. It's going to provide near real-time data for allowing you to make these informed decisions. So, and it solves a variety of issues, because you got product counterfeiting and diversion. You want to be able to trace contaminated foods back to a source. You want to be able to ensure that you're consuming ethically mined materials. And at the end of the day, you want to be able to use all of this data to engage your consumers. So it's extremely important to your overall business process and enabling your supply chain platform.
So end-to-end traceability, I mean, it's stuff we'll come to grips with. So where are we at?
Yeah.
Right?
So end-to-end traceability, right? It's truly tracking from raw material extraction all the way to the end user. So I know there's kind of pieces and parts in between there, and we get, I guess, traceability just within the four walls of the manufacturing facility. OPTEL's really focusing on true end-to-end supply chain visibility, and that should be the case whether you're buying consumer goods or whether you're a patient in the hospital. So to fill that gap, OPTEL's relying on our backbone. So serialization, track and trace that OPTEL's been doing for 30 years. And then there were a few key acquisitions that we made at the end of 2017 that are really to enhance the offering. The first one is a company called GeoTraceability, which is a really cool product. So they've actually surveyed over 180,000 producers, mapped over 215,000 hectares of land, and traced over 210,000 tons of raw materials that have been extracted. They've got projects all across South America, Asia, Africa, Europe, working with farmers of coffee, cocoa, minerals, livestock, healthcare products. And more than being a tracker product, they're also intended to be good partners and good stewards. So they help with business plans for these small farms. They help gather weather data, tracing conflict-free minerals. They're able to assist with production capacities for coffee farms, things like that. And they're also measuring risks for these places for child labor on cocoa farms to make sure that these products that you're consuming are sustainably sourced. And to finish it out, so we've got the raw material extraction. We can see the product. We know it's going to our manufacturing facility. We can track that product through the manufacturing process, through the packaging process with our serialization product. And then we got to get it downstream, right? So we got to get it to our suppliers. And that's where the other acquisition we made, Verify Brand, comes into play. And they're essentially an enterprise level serialization management system. So this is how we send our serialized data down to down to our customers and consumers and on. And that software is vetted in the pharmaceutical industry, food and beverage, and medical device, and other industries across the board.
So I mean, obviously, just to get on the track and trace, you must have seen a significant uptick from the pharma industry.
Yeah, track and trace is definitely well. It's a mandate now, right? So everybody in the pharma industry is doing track and trace, and it's just rolling out now with the aggregation pieces, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays into the actual overall U.S. market of what that data structure is going to look like with all that serialized data. The EU has their hub, and that kind of hasn't been defined in the U.S. yet, so it's going to be an interesting time to see how all that data gets used and consumed.
I got it. Yeah. Okay, getting back to the end-to-end, so it sounds like a great, so how do I get there?
Yeah, so getting to end-to-end traceability is just that. OPTEL's leveraging these three platforms, and basically, you're able to trace raw material extraction using the geotraceability piece, and then we're going to track it through manufacturing for you as serialized product. So now we're tying actual serialized product back to raw materials, and the pharma industry's kind of long done this, right? You know what lot of material you're receiving from a raw material supplier. You know what lots that goes into a manufacturing process, kind of tracked through paper and ERP systems. And essentially, as you get into finished goods, you're going to know they've got some paper trail of this lot ties to this lot, ties to this lot. What we're going to do is streamline that process, because now in recall processes and things like that, it's a paper trail that you have to go back and dig. But that's not what we're providing. What we're providing is true raw material to finished good data through the supply chain, so you can scan a bottle and instantly have the information of where that product was sourced, where it shipped to, what 3PL provider, how it got to that pharmacy or that grocery store, and how long it's been there.
Well, talking about that, so how do I know if it's counterfeit? I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah, so counterfeit products are really what drove the serialization law. But on a different front, I'll give a real world example from a customer we worked with. So makers of one of the largest spirit brands in the world actually had a real problem with counterfeit product. So they were shipping bottles of their product, and people were taking them off the shelves, emptying the good stuff, filling it with counterfeit product, putting it back on the shelves, or then selling it on the gray market. And they were having a really big problem with this. So essentially, we partnered with them to create a solution. And to do that, we bundled a authentication and serialization offering to kind of prevent counterfeiting of their product. So to do that, we encode a unique ID into a QR code that gets placed on the cap with a tamper evidence seal. It's like a 3D holographic image with that unique QR code and unique ID. And then that, obviously, the bottle hasn't been opened, but it also allows the consumer to then scan that QR code, and now they can verify that that product is, in fact, not a counterfeit product. And it also allows them, it also sends them to the company's URL so that they can see the brand story. It helps with marketing. So it's a unique.
This is an app that somebody has on the phone.
It is. It's an app tied to that company. So you download the app, and if you are a consumer of that brand, then
I got you.
You can go and use it. And that system actually generates real-time alerts as well. So it's enabled that company to track those products through the first point of shipment, and then it allows verification, obviously, at any time.
So obviously, I mean, the fact that you get it from the brand that you use has got to generate a tight relationship, brand loyalty. I mean, that's got to build a brand, right?
Agreed. And this is actually my favorite part of intelligent supply chain. I don't know why. I don't know why, but it is. So creating that bond with a company is interesting. First, let me start with kind of a real world story of where we've done this. But we had another brand who wanted to expand their loyalty program. So they sold their product in specialty stores, and they could obviously give rewards when you bought the product in a specialty store. You scan the product, you scan your card, and you get your reward. But as they moved into the consumer market, in grocery stores and things like that, they weren't able to have that engagement with their customers anymore. So we use the Verified Brand Platform. It's called a loyalty accelerator solution, and basically now we, obviously encode another unique ID on their product. So as customers consume their products in grocery stores, now they can use another app provided by that company. They can scan that code, and now they're able to redeem reward points, as they buy that product in a store as well. So that platform actually doubled their loyalty program capacity in a year, processed 14 million transactions in the first year, and a peak capacity of 4.3 million transactions per day. So it's a pretty extensive program for them.
So, I mean, Chad, that's like the ads that you see running from some of these the fast food chains.
Yeah.
Scan this and that's the basis of what we're talking about.
Absolutely, and the other part, and this is the part that I love the most, actually, when we talk about relationships with consumers, is being able to tell a story about your brand, right? So I'm a loyal shopper typically, and I actually live in South Carolina, so when I go to the grocery store, I buy certified SC grown produce, just because I know it's local, and it's more of a farmer market kind of mentality, right?
Right.
Okay. But the same concept goes, if I'm buying a product on the market, and I know exactly where that product was farmed, and I know who the farmer is. I mean, with the geotraceability platform, they're also surveying these farmers. They know the farmer's name and how many kids they have and what type of land they own. So when you start to build that type of relationship with the people supplying the materials, me as a consumer, I love that concept. I know, when I buy this product, this is who my money's going to downstream, and I just think you feel like you're buying something more local, I guess, as a consumer, right?
Yeah, I think, and one of the things as we get into more personalized medicine, I think the integrity of that I know that was made from it. We have to assure that. So, so how does that aggregation work then? I mean,
yeah. So basically, the inspection and aggregation of all this data, really, the driving force behind that is going to be valuable investigation tools. So, in medicines and food, whatever you're looking at, the more data I have around a specific product, the easier it is for me to go back and look and see, tie that to issues maybe on manufacturing. So if I'm producing something on a piece of manufacturing equipment and I have a data excursion point, right? Well, now I know exactly what products were produced on that manufacturing piece of equipment. So as a quality organization, I'm no longer guessing about, it may be on this pallet, or we're going to have to sample, 10,000 products because we had this data excursion, so we're going to have to find the point of failure. Now I have an exact point to go in. I know exactly what serial numbers. I've aggregated that data to a pallet. I can walk over and scan that pallet, know exactly what cases, exactly what product on those cases might be affected. And now my quality sampling plan is very narrow, and you can go in and quickly assess the issue and see if it has any impact on product.
So I mean, that's the transparency and the
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's what does it, right?
Yeah. So yeah.
So if you lack that visibility and transparency,
Yeah.
That's
So,
where
yeah.
I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So so if you're lacking that visibility in your supply chain, you definitely have issues. I think the goal of supply chain visibility really is just to improve and strengthen the supply chain by making information readily available to you and your consumers, so that you can adjust to shocks in the supply chain. So without that knowledge, without actual consumer demands and inventory levels, shipment data, really your agility and responsiveness to supply chain issues is kind of out the window, right? Without that visibility, you kind of have a lack of knowledge in product diversion, product damage, and stagnant product. So a lot of places are manufacturing product they may not need to be manufacturing, because you may have a shortage in one area and an overage of product in another area, and without having visibility into where those products sit, then you're not leveraging it to the best of its ability.
Exactly. So in that particular case, the bottom line is directly impacted. I mean, the transparency drives the bottom line. Then.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the key to driving the bottom line is volatility. So like I was saying, the manufacturing process has long tried to control volatility. You try to enhance your machine so that you know your failures, and you want to keep your OEEs high and all of those things. So to reduce volatility in the supply chain kind of does the same thing for you. You're able to to pick up that manufacturing efficiency or supply chain efficiency that you would otherwise lose. So that you're trying to control volatility in supply and in forecasting, and this just causes issues in multiple areas.
So traceability and intelligent supply chain improve business performance. That's how it works.
Absolutely. So if you're reducing that volatility, then you're driving your costs down through the supply chain. So this is kind of where OPTEL's ISC platform acts as a control tower. So what we're trying to do is give you actionable data. So we've collected all this data. We have very granular production data, very granular raw material extraction data, very granular shipment data to your consumers. We want to take all of that data and use it across the entire supply chain from extraction to disposal. And then as that happens, as you start to tie into collaborating with other trading partners, that's where you really get transparency in the system. So as you exchange data with your trading partners, the big thing's going to be trust, right? You got to provide them with digital ledgers. So this is kind of where the whole blockchain concept comes in. So you can have a data access between trading partners to create this giant pool of data between raw material providers, your manufacturing process, your end consumers. And once you have all that data, this is where the analytics process comes in, and being able to use AI to make smart real-time decisions in the supply chain. And all that is really driving to manage inventories. You really want to track product damages. You can monitor and act on product temperature changes. All this is to be more agile and react to shortages and overages within the supply chain. So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, just as an aside, most people put time temperature integrators on shipments. So OPTEL takes that data and integrates it into the fabric of your intelligent supply chain. That's the way it works, right?
Absolutely. It's like I said, it's data for better decisions. So the more data we can extract and consume, then the better decisions we're going to make. So it's data from serialization, from time and temperature, from ERP systems, because there's valuable data in there. Obviously from MES systems. I want to know manufacturing data because it's going to affect my planning. I need to know if our normal efficiencies are 80% or are we normally 70%. It's going to affect how we plan and how long our production runs are going to be.
Gotcha. So intelligent supply chain, let's look down the road here. So where are the most value going to be hitting this as we move?
So OPTEL's goal is, and it's not so our slogan is technologies for a better world. It's not a concept, or not just a phrase for us. Our owner is a great humanitarian. He is honestly out to save the world any way he can, and he's a great man. And his concept is using these technologies to build a sustainable world. If you can reduce waste by enhancing your supply chain, or get rid of counterfeit products, sustainably sourcing products, optimizing efficiencies, those types of things. This really is how we see the intelligent supply chain not only changing the world, but optimizing businesses and making them more efficient. So, and then it's that patient engagement piece as well, because me, as a socially responsible consumer, I want to know where my product was sourced. I want to know that it was sourced sustainably, and that there wasn't child labor involved, and that I'm buying conflict-free minerals and those types of things. So for us, that's one of the main driving forces.
I think people, when they talk about the educated consumer, sometimes don't that's what we're talking about. I mean, the ability to know how it was sourced, where it came from,
Absolutely. That's why I said that's why I said for me the most exciting part about it is consumer engagement, because as a consumer, I mean, you never know. I mean, people could say, oh, well, this is organically produced, or this is, conflict, but you have no concept behind it. Nobody actually, I mean, I know there's organizations that check this, but to actually have the knowledge of and be able to see where the farm is and understand the connections between all the pieces and parts, I think is exciting.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, in our industry, I mean, it's not like we go in and we're buying food products so in other words, our end user is a patient, right? I mean, so I guess what I'm trying to say is how does that play? It's not really like he's picking it up off the shelf. I mean, explain how that works.
Sure. As you're looking for providers in this market for intelligent supply chain, you've got to find somebody that has the ability to capture that granular data. You need somebody that is versed in capturing, the physical product as it's manufactured, as it's shipped. They should be able to digitize that data and extract actionable intelligent reporting out of that data. And I think that's where OPTEL is extremely strong. For more than 30 years I've been doing it, right? So we're a global leader in serialization and track and trace. We've been offering customers value and empowerment through that, and enhancing the supply chain with that data. I think that's really where our strength is.
Well, how would you leverage that to a patient? Let me just, you know what I'm saying? I'm whoever, Novartis,
sure,
whatever, and I'm making product. Prime example. I mean, Novartis, valsartan dropped off patent, and no sooner was it off patent than some of that valsartan with unknown degradants, and what I'm trying to say is, how would a firm use OPTEL's capability in track and trace and ISC? How do you do that? How do you make somebody feel good about it?
Well, so I think there's a lot of ways. So in the food and beverage market, it's obviously you're talking like we were talking about customer engagement and making them feel comfortable with the product that you're selling. To go back, to kind of integrate with what we talked about earlier, the CAR T therapy. I mean, we've actually been talking to companies about being able to track, using this same platform as track and trace for these therapy drugs. So it's essentially the concept of extracting the patient's blood or whatever, and actually giving that a unique ID in our system. We would then be able to create a parent-child relationship as that therapy occurs. So when the patient's sample hits the manufacturing facility, they can scan it in. It's a unique ID to them at that point, so it kind of takes some of those HIPAA laws out, so you don't actually need a patient's name now. We just have a unique ID tied to that patient. So it goes through the manufacturing process. You can actually continually scan that sample as it goes through the multiple phases of manufacturing, so you have complete visibility of that sample in the process. And then as it gets back to a hospital, you'll be able to scan that sample, scan the patient to verify the linkage between the two, and then to ensure that they're getting the right treatment. That, and having that level of visibility, I think, is important. And more than that, you're also then, back to consumer engagement, you can allow the patient to see where they are in process. Because if you're getting that kind of stuff done, I mean, you're obviously on edge. You're waiting for it. So now you can create a portal where, a customer can go in and look and say, okay, well, my samples reached the facility. It's in the 3rd stage of 5 stages of manufacturing. It's expected to be back on site this date. Also helps hospitals with scheduling and that type of thing. So that's where that visibility comes into play, and the security behind the product.
So as we move more into the cell and gene therapy, that I would think that, because we were talking about that in our first session, and you know, track and trace is key, but it sounds to me it's got to be a lot more than that as well. I mean, it's what you're talking about. I mean, it's the relationship is confidence that what I'm giving you, you're going to give me back is mine.
Absolutely, and I think the having that level of granularity and data for the consumer, right, is important, because I want to feel comfortable. But it's more important, I think, for the manufacturer, because you know it also gives you some key statistics. So what's my dwell time in my manufacturing process? You know, as I receive the sample, what's the average time of sample delivery and extraction, and you know, stage 1 manufacturing, stage 2 manufacturing, so that you can help enhance your process and you know, provide a better product to your patients.
Right. So we're all a lot of us are in development or manufacturing. So when do we drop the dime when we call OPTEL? I mean, what's the best time now? I mean,
I'll take numbers today.
I figured that, but I mean, obviously, you know, that's what we heard too. I mean, so the question is, when do you start?
My background is pharmaceutical manufacturing. I've only been with OPTEL for a little over a year now, and I've done essentially machine automation, SCADA solutions, data development for the first 14 years of my career, and I'll say the same about engaging OPTEL as I'll say about engaging MES systems. Do it at the beginning, because it's so much harder to change a manufacturing process to align with an MES system. It's so much harder to change a manufacturing process to align with you know, a serialization or data integrity platform. If you design your process that way, with the intent of track and trace in mind, and you do it from the beginning, it's an easier rollout. You're going to pay less in the long run for sure, and you're gonna have, you know, confidence in your process from the beginning.
So this would be the overarch of everything would fit in. In other words, it goes back to the classic supply chain definition. You know, so that supply chain method is established, and then everything else feeds into this that we establish along the line, not vice versa.
Right. Yeah. So the ISC is adaptable in the sense that if you have a defined process, it's not our intent to change it. But obviously, with data collection systems and you know, data gathering systems, there's always going to be, just like installing an SAP system, right? You can pay for the customization to customize SAP to the nth degree, but if you can find a solution in your process that more mirrors a standard solution, then in the long run, it's going to be more sustainable, and you're obviously going to pay less for you know, upgrades, because every time SAP does an upgrade, they're going to break your customized fix, and you got to go back and get them to fix it again. So the same is true for every system, and that's why I say if you start at the beginning and you can build your process around these standard solutions that exist and integrate the OPTEL ISC, you're going to end up with a better solution long term and a more sustainable and cost-efficient solution.
I think it's important. I think that's one of the things that we didn't hear this morning. I think one of the things that you had was that they were worrying more about, you know, modularity of the systems. I got all that, but to me the question is, how do you manage that? You know?
Yeah, but that's the beauty is data consumption doesn't have to come from. So the OPTEL track and trace platform is the key. That's the backbone for our system. So that's a necessary piece. But we're not going to go out and collect your MES data for you. So the modularity approach still exists in that, you know, if you're collecting data in an ERP system already, we're not going to replace your ERP system. That's not the intent. But we want to consume that data, and we want to give you valuable, actionable data from that system that's tied to our data as well. So it's aggregating the data.
So the question really is based on what our folks and everything. So what should I be looking for in an ISC system? You know?
Like I said, I think you've got to find somebody who can, in an ISC system, you've really got to have somebody who can extract that manufacturing data, extract real-time data from your system, give you the data granularity that you're going to need to truly track and trace product through your supply chain. And I would look for somebody who's not an upstart doing it. You know, we've got a long history of providing that data to our customers in multiple validated pharmaceutical industry, you know, in the industry. So, and food and beverage and med device. I mean, like I said, so when you look for somebody to partner with in that ISC solution, I would look strongly at OPTEL.
Okay. Well, based on the comments, is I would assume that a lot of people in the cell gene therapy have already knocked on your door. So
yeah, we've had a lot of interest from them.
I would imagine. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Pharmaceutical Processing, in conjunction with INTERPHEX, presents INTERPHEX Live.